This section will address the technique of the E minor and A minor chords. By now, you're practicing your scales on a daily basis. If not, you need to review the previous 2 levels where we talk about the whole technique and scale technique. We're going to be drawing heavily upon that technique to play chords. And just as a quick reminder, there we learned to play as close to the fret as possible. And we also learned to play on the fingertips and to keep the wrist straight, and we do so by keeping that thumb somewhere in the center of the hand. We don't want the thumb to go too high because look what it does to the wrist. We don't want it too low. We don't want it too far to the right or to the left. We want that thumb somewhere right in the center of the hand, allowing for a straight wrist. So we're going to translate all that to our 2 chords. Your first chord, the E minor, only requires 2 fingers, and that's why I have you learning it first. It's easy to learn, and it's found in a ton of songs. Now, in other books, you might see the E minor played with fingers 1 and 2, 2 and 3, and in some circumstances, you might see it played with fingers 3 and 4. But for stability purposes, I'm going to go with fingers 2 and 3, and it's the more common method. Okay, I want you to remember that there are 2 things that will cause you not to get a sound. 1 is lack of pressure, and then 2 is blocking a note. So when it comes to lack of pressure, the best thing you can do is play right up against the fret, as close to the fret as possible. Just like you do when you play your scales, you play right up against the fret. You already know that the further back you go, the more the note will buzz. Well, the same thing here. If I'm playing way back here, it's going to buzz. But the more I move it towards the fret, the cleaner the sound gets. Now, I'm able to do that really well with the 3rd finger. I can get it right up against that fret. But since we are sharing frets, the 2nd finger is going to have to compromise a little bit, so it's more towards the center of the fret. And that's okay, just as long as you're not back here and you're right up against the fret, you're going to have the best opportunity for a clean sound. Now, blocking usually happens when you lay down flat like this. And what I tell my students is if I can see your fingernails, you're probably blocking a note. So watch as I hide my fingernails from you, the audience, and then now I'm getting a nice clean sound. But watch what happens as I lay flat. I start killing some of these sounds here, especially that one right there. So I correct it by curving the finger. Now for those of you with longer fingernails, or if you haven't maintained your nails in a while, it's good to go and cut them. I think you'll find an immediate improvement because the nail keeps you from playing on the fingertip. So it's pretty self-explanatory. You just curve the fingers. And once again, you don't curve the wrist to play on the fingertip. You curve the finger to play on the fingertip. And then you check your notes to make sure that you're not blocking a note and also that you're getting plenty of pressure up against the string. Your first 3-finger chord is the A minor. And for that reason, it's going to take a little longer to get the clean sound out of it than it did with your E minor chord. So it requires a bit more strength. But the good news is that most of your open string chords like your C, your G, your D, all those chords require 3 fingers as well. So this is a good gateway into those other chords. Also, the A minor chord looks a lot like the E minor chord. So if we take our E minor chord and we move fingers 2 and 3 down to the next set of strings, we've got most of the chord intact. All we have to do from that point is add the first finger to the first fret on the B string. You put it all together and you have your A minor chord. Once again, remember that there are 2 things that will cause you not to get sound. And the first one is lack of pressure, which can be corrected by playing right up against the frets. And the other one is blocking, which can be corrected by playing up on the fingertips. So you don't want to play on the flat part here. You want to curve your fingers just like you did with the E minor chord. And then once you get those 2 things corrected, you check your notes one by one, and you listen for any block notes like that. You assess the damage, you correct it, and then move on. Okay, so you've learned your E minor, and you've learned your A minor. And next, we need to put those together. And in the next level, we're going to do just that in the form of a song. And so to prepare you for that, I'm going to show you a little trick that I learned in the back of a Jeep on my way to a vacation spot. And at the time I was studying jazz, and it was this chord right here. It's an A7 913. I'm not going to have you learn that chord, but you can see that's kind of a difficult shape to play. It was especially difficult for me at the time. So it was too noisy to really hear what I was doing. But what I found myself doing was I was just kind of doing this. And I felt like I was playing with a fidget toy, just kind of doing this as a twitch, kind of a nervous twitch. But I did it for like 2 hours. I didn't even realize I was doing this the whole time. I was having a conversation, and I was just squeezing the chord like this. Well, by the end of that trip, I had that chord mastered, and I couldn't believe it. But the only thing I could figure out was that this exercise right here assisted in helping me learn the chord quickly. And it makes sense because every time you squeeze, that stimulus goes into your brain and it helps your muscle memory. So I call these push-ups. So what you can do is you can practice push-ups on these two chords. So you just make the chord, and with very light pressure, you just squeeze and relax like this. And you maintain contact with the string. Now, I used to do this type of thing, and that works. But what I found is if I maintain contact with the string and squeeze like this, I can get a lot more repetitions in less time. And that's the reason why this works. And it works with all my students. So to learn these chords quickly and to get that muscle memory down, just play the chord like this. Just squeeze, relax, squeeze, relax. And then you can go to your A minor chord. You can do the same thing. And once you get pretty good at that, you can work on combinations. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the E minor. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the A minor. And just move back and forth between the two chords. It's a really good exercise. You don't have to worry about your picking hand. You can just focus all your attention on your fretting hand. This exercise will not make you tired if you do it correctly because you're using light squeezes. So you shouldn't get tired. We call them push-ups. They simply work. So give them a try.